Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from beautiful downtown Wayne at the Radnor Studio 21. It's also mainline television. And I have to confess, I love to interview interesting people who are doing important work in the community. I'm never, or hardly ever, jealous of them. Today I'm jealous, and I'll tell you why. Because my friend Anne Sceia Klein, who graduated 2 years behind me at Penn, she wrote a book. She interviewed a whole bunch of her classmates and wrote this fabulous book about the Women of Penn 64. I wish I had done it with the Women of Penn 62 because our women were terrific. But here is Anne Klein, and we've been active together for many years in the Philadelphia Public Relations Association, and I'll let her give you a little bit of her background because she's been a PR professional forever, right?
50-some years, yes. Thank you, Bonnie, for having me as your guest today. I really appreciate it. My background is a little unusual for a woman of my generation. And I went to school at a small high school in southern New Jersey at Hamilton High School. And my father was a teacher in the dental school at Penn.
Ooh.
And ever since I was a little kid, I remember him saying to me, "You're going to go to the Wharton School." Okay, fine. So
They didn't let women in the Wharton School.
no, they didn't. They didn't. Not until much later. In the 50s. So I was determined that I wanted to be a dentist like my father. I wanted to be a nurse like my aunts. I wanted to do all sorts of things. And my father said, "You are going to be in business because you're an only child and you have to be able to support yourself if something happens." So I said, okay, that's fine.
And my folks, who never had the advantage of going to college, I always knew I was going to Penn. I don't know how I got brainwashed from like the age of 8. I was going to go to Penn, but it was, if you become a teacher, you can always support yourself. So I became a teacher initially.
Well, that's the career path that most
Right.
women took in the late 50s, early 60s, was to be a teacher or a nurse because you could support yourself.
Or a social worker.
Or a social worker.
Women were allowed to be social workers too.
Yeah. A lot of women in the book got a teaching certificate just in case because their mothers wanted them to have a career they could fall back on. But it was crazy time because I did wind up getting accepted at Penn, but the principal of my high school said he could probably get me into a state teachers college. Not a good thing to tell my father at the time. So I went to Wharton and I wanted to major in corporate finance. And
They let you enroll in Wharton?
They let me enroll in Wharton. There were 12 of us in our class in 1960. 8 of us graduated, but not the original 12 that had become enrolled. And a lot of women dropped out. A lot of women just couldn't take being the only woman in a class. And I was the only woman in most of my classes. So what happened was you had to choose a major at the end of your sophomore year. And I wanted to be a corporate finance major. My father had drilled all this into my head. So I thought, okay, I'll learn finance, I'll learn business and whatever. Well, the head of the corporate finance department said, "No woman is ever going to major in corporate finance as long as I'm this department chair."
I love it.
So I went to the head of the marketing department. I had really enjoyed marketing, and I asked him if he would take me, and he said he would. Marketing was much more an open field for women. So I majored in marketing. Well, surprise, surprise. When it came time to look for jobs, most of the marketing jobs said male only on the sign-up sheets. So I really didn't have a lot of options. And my father said,
They say, "Can you type?" You could be a secretary, right?
Well, that was after I went to graduate school. My father wanted me to go to law school, and I said, "You have to be nuts." I said, "I've been the only woman in all my classes for the past 4 years, and I'm going to go to law school for 3 years." So I went to the Annenberg School for Communication, and that was great. And I got out of the Annenberg School, still no jobs. And I started typing, and do you remember back in the 60s we had speed writing? It was a kind of shorthand, but it was a different kind of shorthand.
I never learned to do that, fortunately.
Well, the first day of that I was to start school, I got a job offer from a woman at SEPTA. And it was the predecessor company to SEPTA, but it's neither here nor there. I met her through the Women's Placement Service at Penn, who knew one woman who worked at INA, who knew a woman who started a search firm who had placed the woman at SEPTA. So to this day, I still see my very first boss once or twice a year. I love her. And she says, "I don't know what I did." And I said, "You gave me a start." And that was really important.
What's her name?
Her name was Lois Marasco. And she had been at SEPTA and then the Reading Railroad, and then she went to PennDOT. And a lot of the people who are still in broadcasting remember Lois from her PennDOT days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great lady.
So here we have On the Cusp, the Women of Penn 64. And it's interesting because I know a few of these women. You're in here also. But Judy Berkowitz, it's funny because I always thought Judy was in my class because she married one of my classmates.
Yes, she did.
And she and Mike, she comes to every one of our reunions. So I just thought she was part of my class, but now I see she's part of your class.
She's part of my class.
Yeah.
Judy's story is just incredible. She did go to work as a secretary at IBM, but they wanted to put her in personnel. And she said, "Oh, no, you don't want me in the personnel department," because I would just tell everybody, "Get on with your life, stop complaining." So she stayed at IBM for a while till her first child was born. And she said the benefits at IBM were terrific in those days. So, and they probably, I don't know if they still are today. But Judy then went into business for herself. And her mother had taught her the retail sales business because her mother became a widow at a very early age. And so Judy started this sales business because her mom had the retail business. And Judy said, "I can still sew a perfect hem." So she did very well in the retail sales business. A lot of the women in my class did go into their own business eventually.
You also, I didn't have any. I think there was one African-American guy in my class of 62.
Was that John Weideman? Do you remember?
No, wasn't John. No, he was a revolutionary and a rebel, Leroy, and I can't remember his last name. But you found Reverend Dr. Betty Blunt, who was a nurse, a teacher, and a minister. Did you know her when you were an undergraduate?
No. Betty was older than we are. And I found her because one of the women in my class had found her, that she graduated in 1964. We had, I guess, 5 African-American women. 3 are deceased, which is very sad. One became a minister, and I did connect with her, but she never got back to me. And then I found Betty, and Betty is unbelievable. The stories that she tells for a woman of color graduating in the 60s were just unbelievable. She said she was a consultant. She became a nurse. She became a psychiatric nurse, but then she did a lot of consulting. And she said she would get off the plane and everybody was looking around, where's the woman we're looking for? She said nobody figured out, hey, I'm the woman you're looking for. She said, so it would take 3 or 4 hours for them to get to understand an African-American woman. And then she said finally she knew her stuff, so she got started. But she said it was difficult. Really difficult. And her story is simply amazing, a very strong mother, very strong grandmother who just fought for her. Most of the women in this book that I wrote were very confident, but a lot of confidence came from their parents, a lot from their mothers, some from their fathers, and some for both. But the confidence that they had, and then going to Penn and getting accepted as the first class, we had 385 women, and I guess there were other women in nursing and allied medical professions and whatever, but there were 385.
Were you in the College for Women?
I was in the Wharton School.
Oh, you were in the Wharton School?
Yeah.
Okay, because I had a sorority sister, Jackie Zahn, who
I remember
desperately
Jackie.
wanted to be in Wharton. They allowed her to take classes, but they would not let her enroll as a Wharton student. And the reason that I was in the College for Women, and the College of Education, was because that was the co-ed college, whereas the College for Women was only women. I said, "Feh, I'm not going to be in a College for Women." But ironically, right before I was graduated from Penn for my first degree, they abolished the College of Education on an undergraduate level. You had to be in the graduate school, and it was like 5 years, and you got a master's degree, whatever. Anyway, I got a Master of Arts in English Literature. I didn't go back to the College of Education. So on my diploma, it says College for Women, which has always galled me because I didn't want to be part of the College for Women.
Well, there was the college, which was men, and the College for Women.
Yeah.
And I think Penn became integrated finally about 1976 or the mid-70s. They abolished the two different distinctions. But the Wharton School was very, very difficult for women. And I was very blessed to get into school. And the other women, one woman really had enrolled in the College of Education, but then they eliminated it, and she was very happy. and Penn kept changing a lot of programs, so the women who wanted to major in architecture suddenly had to go to school longer to get an architecture degree. And other women who wanted to get a Master of Science in chemistry, they would have to take 6 more credits of courses. They'd have another 6 months added to their education to get the Master of Science. So Rona Solomon Cohen, who lives out here, Rona settled for the Master of Arts in chemistry. So it was, times were really changing, but our class, for some reason, the confidence we had and being at Penn, we just thought we could conquer the world. And I think probably many of us did. None of us became CEOs of major corporations, but I think that the impact we had on other women was pretty significant. But I wrote the news release before the feminist revolution of the 1970s. There was the Penn class of 64, and these were the women who really went into fields that women didn't traditionally do: architecture, chemical engineering, attorneys, investments, that sort of thing.
Yeah, one of my classmates was probably one of the first women to go to law school, Lita Inzel Cohen, and it was not a happy time if you're the only woman in the whole class, as you well know.
It was not happy, but I found that I was able to become kind of like a sister to the guys in my class, and so they stuck up for me. And we had a sociology class in our freshman year where it was clear the teaching assistant, do you remember them? We had teaching or instructors in the first year or so of our,
yes.
Yeah.
They were all working on their master's degrees.
That's correct. And he just couldn't stop making really nasty sexual type comments, and the guys just shut him down. And so that was good, and I really was grateful to the guys in my class who did that.
I wanted to ask you, how did you start your own business? What year was it? Did you max out all your credit cards? Did your parents loan you money? How did you do it?
I spent 16 years in the corporate world I must have been nuts, banking, and then I went to Sun Oil Company. And I I had spent 16 years in corporate, and
What did you do with Sun Oil?
I was manager of media relations. I had a huge staff,
Oh.
and then after the gasoline shortage, my job was to keep the
73, I remember.
no. This was the Iranian one in 78, 79.
Oh, okay.
First, we went on heating oil allocation, and then we went on gasoline allocation. And so I kept getting the executives out and talking, and I was promoted to manager of executive communication. Well, after 16 years of doing this and being in corporate, what am I going to do? I was working for the chairman of the 17th largest Fortune 500 company, go to work for the 13th. So I talked to my boss, who's Dick Jackman. He lives in Radnor. And I talked to Dick about it, and fortunately, he gave me two things that made it possible to start my business. One was a contract for a year, and the second was an open door to go back if I didn't like my own business. So I started in one bedroom of the house, and you asked about loans. My father gave me stock to get a collateral loan to buy an Apple II Plus computer with 16, whatever, it was a 16 megabyte or whatever, I don't know all the terms. And I got 2 disk drives that put it up to 40, 42, 48. And I worked like heck. I had this collateral loan that I knew I had to pay off. So eventually I paid it off. But but starting it in one bedroom of the house was probably a really good idea. I bought a used copy machine, and it was enormous. And so I put it in another room that Jerry had used for when he went to law school.
Jerry's her husband.
Jerry's my
Very
husband.
Supportive husband.
Yeah, yes, he is. He really is. In fact, this book wouldn't have taken place if it hadn't been for him. He learned how to self-publish. But it was an interesting time, and I remember I did a small card, we would call it a Slim Jim, but it fit in a number 10 envelope. And on one side I had my bio sketch, the other side I had a list of a million things I could do. I must have been crazy, but anyway, I sent it out I had a mailing list of 500 people. And those were the days where I hired an intern who had worked for me at Girard Bank, and she was home, and she was raising her first child. And so she typed all the envelopes, and I personalized every single card.
500 cards. Woo.
500, yeah. And I got 4 accounts doing that. So it was really the start, and I found I really liked it. But my days at Sun were really good training for crisis and issues and all kinds of things that came up. So that's how it all got started. And I started it in 1982, and I left the business in January of 2017. I actually transferred the business over a period of 10 years to a young man I had brought in when he had just graduated from Rowan. And Chris Lukács was probably the best person I ever hired because he's terrific. He's a great young man. Yeah.
He's terrific. He's also very active in the Philadelphia Public Relations Association. Now tell us the kinds of awards that your Anne Klein communications firm won.
Oh, we won dozens and dozens of awards. We won the Pepper Potts, which is the Philadelphia Public Relations Association award program. We won Bernie's, which was the Public Relations Professionals of Southern New Jersey. We won Jasper's, which was the Jersey Shore Public Relations Association. And one I'm extremely proud of, which was a Silver Anvil Award of Merit from the National Public Relations Association. So that's what the firm won. I was really privileged to have been named the PR Professional of the Year by the New Jersey chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. I was awarded a Woman of Distinction from Philadelphia Business Journal. I'm looking at you and thinking you're one of the 50 best women in business in Pennsylvania. I won also a 50 best women, business women in New Jersey from NJ Biz. I won a Brava Award. So it's really been very exciting.
And Hall of Fame.
Well, the Hall of Fame was
from-
the Hall of Fame was the big one in, I cannot believe it was
PPRA.
2004 from PPRA, and I just received a Lifetime Achievement Award for 50 years of membership in the Public Relations Society of America, and I received a Lifetime Legacy Award from SJ Magazine. So it's
terrific.
Yeah,
That's SJ is South Jersey.
South Jersey. Yeah.
For those of us who summer at the shore.
Yeah, well, there's a competitor publication called South Jersey. So this one is called SJ Magazine, so it was from SJ. I've really been blessed, and one award that I shared with Jerry was a Southern New Jersey American Heart Association Go Red for Women award that Jerry and I received for all the work we did with the American Heart Association. So that was really nice.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Now I see that the foreword in your book is by Dr. Amy Gutman, our president of the University of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
How'd you get Amy to do the foreword for your book?
Well, I'd love to tell you I know her personally. I don't.
I do. She's fabulous.
That's great. The vice president of public relations, the vice president of alumni relations from the University of Pennsylvania said, let me take care of that. And so we had finished the first draft of the book in October of 2017. And so I delivered it to Hoops Wampler, who's the VP.
Oh, Hoops is terrific.
Hoops is wonderful.
Yes, he is.
And he took it over to Dr. Gutman, and it took 3 months to get it, but he kept saying, you're going to get it, you're going to get it, and so I did.
He's as good as his word. He always is. You can depend upon Hoops.
Yeah.
If he says he's going to do something, he always does it. Now, you said self-published. Look at this gorgeous book. How did you self-publish it?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to Jerry, my husband. I went to the University of Pennsylvania Press thinking, oh, this is such a natural.
Just a natural,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, the editor-in-chief of the Pennsylvania Press said to me, you don't want to go through this process. He said, there's an academic peer review committee, all academics, professors. He said, it'll take months and months to get it out if they ever approve it. He said, so I would say, get it out, self-publish it. So my husband, Jerry Klein, who is just a genius, I think, and I know he is, he did all the research on self-publishing. Well, BookBaby offered a lot of services that we really didn't need. And Create Space, which is an Amazon platform, they made it a lot easier. And there were all kinds of online commentary, and there was a step-by-step of how to do it. So Jerry figured it out. And the first book we published was in an orange and yellow. And my classmates said, not going to do it. Everybody's comparing it to Hidden Figures, so we changed it to red and blue. And
well, red and blue are Penn's colors.
Penn's colors. I know, we should have done that to begin with, but we tried something different because there were no books that were in orange and yellow. Well, I heard from the librarian at the Union League that everybody's publishing books now in orange and yellow. And so we went to red and blue, and Jerry designed it, and he did a great job with it. And my former speechwriter and ghostwriter, Paul Eisenberg, wrote the back cover, which is just, it was a brilliant piece of writing, and he had read the book for me overnight. I just wanted his comments, and he said, I wrote a paragraph for you. Well, Jerry and I loved it, so we used it for the back cover. So
I love this. I want to read this. It would be a half century before they became fully aware of what they had accomplished for themselves and women everywhere, shattering the then existing belief that the only roles in society for women were housewife, mother, secretary, teacher, or nurse. Ain't that the truth? Our guest today has been Anne Klein, who wrote this fabulous book, On the Cusp, The Women of Penn 64. We'll have to bring her back because there's so many interesting stories. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Bonnie. It was a pleasure.